3 Marvel epics, 1 Titanic episode. It's time for breakfast.
Breakfast!
Our saga begins with the Mighty Thor Annual Number 2 by Lee and Kirby. From the halls of noble Asgard, All-Father Odin puts out the call. The tournament of Titans hath begun. A test of strength, courage, and character for all warriors, with the prize being a shimmering suit of golden armor bequeathed by Odin himself. And it's not just a local affair. Lighting the beacon of the brave on the Rock of Eternity summons the mightiest warriors in all of creation to the grand event, from Grimsgard all the way to the nameless land of the Wind Giants. It's a bit like the NFL draft pick, but for gods. All this activity does not go unnoticed. While streaking through space, a disembodied Loki notes the fiery bolt that heralds the tournament's beginning. Crafting a cunning new plan, he projects his consciousness back to Asgard, where Thor currently confers with the All-Father. Odin waxes philosophical on the upcoming event, but there's clearly somewhere else his number one son would rather be. That, of course, is off gallivanting with his pals, the Warriors 3, who are clowning outside of the palace window as we speak. Noting his son's distraction, Odin dispatches Thor, telling him they'll meet up at the ceremony. Relieved at the chance to finally duck out, old Goldilocks heads off with his pals, leaving a somber Odin to drink alone and quietly sob cats in the cradle to himself. So what do 4 Asgardian gods do in their leisure time? Pretty much the same thing they do otherwise, which is drink and brawl, although not necessarily in that order. Stumbling into a bar fight led by the bone-crushing Brock, the Asgardians waste no time joining the fray. Fandral the Brave crosses swords with the like-minded Tyr, another bladesman with something to prove. Hogun the Grim decides he'd like a piece, but gets a whole plateful when Gault the Steel-Arm lunges in. Before things can get all uncool and heavy, Drom the Spirit Weaver steps between the feuding parties. They didn't come all this way just to fight in a bar. The ultimate test is the tournament, where their differences are best resolved. With the other 3 fighters chosen, the voluminous Volstagg hath no choice but to battle Drom, a challenge he heartily accepts. At the same time, traveling at the speed of thought itself, the scheming Loki plunges earthward into the long-forgotten ruins of an ancient Asian temple. There, beneath the tumbled columns and shattered masonry, he finds what he seeks, and the mountains tremble with his fury. And rightly so, as the Destroyer lives again. With enough raw power to shatter a planet, the towering terror makes for an unsuspecting Asgard. Back at the gleaming city, the time has come for the Warriors' Charge, the most awesome display of fighting power ever assembled in one arena. To the bravest of all shall go the prize. Now, let the battle be joined. With that, all hell breaks loose, twin oceans of combatants surging forward in a staggering display of raw power. But something is amiss. For every foe Thor unseats from their mount, 2 more appear to take their place. With the opposing forces inexplicably doubled, the lions of Asgard begin to fall. With both Hogun and Fandral down for the count, attention turns to Volstagg, too preoccupied to note the sinister trio stealing up from behind. And if this sound effect is any indication, he's gonna need an Anison. At the same time, Heimdall turns from his post upon the fabled Rainbow Bridge to note an altogether unexpected arrival. It's the Destroyer, and he's here to crash the party. Turns out no less than Odin himself is responsible for this metallic engine of destruction, creating it aeons ago to protect Earth from ultimate disaster. Oops. No match for the armored titan Heimdall is dispatched with a blast of elemental force, leaving Asgard open for conquest. Meanwhile, back at the tournament, Thor calls bullshit on the other team's use of magic and demands the right of personal challenge to regain yon pennant. With that, the mayhem resumes, with Volstagg discovering his sparring partner's startling secret. But the voluminous one doesn't shake with fear, he trembles with eagerness for battle. However, Drom the Troll suddenly turns tail, not afeard of his foe, but the sudden appearance of the Destroyer. Pounded into the very firmament itself, the startled god can only sound a cry of warning as the invader advances. Thoughts of the tournament forgotten, all sides attack the Destroyer, but one swing of its armored gauntlet shatters every raised sword. Leagues of warriors spill to the arena floor like toddlers, powerless to stop the ever-advancing juggernaut. Watching from his throne, Odin ponders this turn of events. Only an immortal might breach the walls of fabled Asgard, and only the vanquished Loki would possess such perfidy. Below, Thor and the Warriors Three turn their attention to this new threat, but one question remains unanswered. Where is Baldr the Brave in all of this? However, there's no time for questions, only time to strike. Thor hurls Mjolnir at the ever-advancing destroyer, the hammer's impact momentarily halting its progress. Pressing the advantage, Thor begins pummeling his larger foe, again and again with blows that thunder off the arena walls. Achieving the seemingly impossible, our hero knocks the destroyer from its feet, but down doth not mean out. The destroyer unleashes a devastating blast of power that drives the thunder god back. Struck by a stray hunk of debris, Thor falls. With nothing to stop it and flames spewing from its fingertips, the destroyer rises to its feet. Odin confronts his errant creation, calling out Loki, but through the boastful trickster we learn the Allfather can do nothing without knowing where his stepson's body is. Funny that, before the destroyer can raise its visor and incinerate Odin, an astral figure speeds into the fray. 'Tis Baldr, having returned from his quest. He knows where Loki's inert form lies, just the knowledge needed to stay the destroyer's wrath. Casting a spell to make time itself stand still, Odin sends a beam of forgetfulness across the galaxy, instantly closing Loki's mind to all thought, all memory. With that, the destroyer topples forward, an empty shell once more. The day is saved, and, as all gathered combatants had raised their swords in defense of Asgard, Odin grants everyone a boon, their armor turning to gold on this day every year hence. 'Tis a grand day in Asgard indeed. Now, if only someone would help Volstagg out of the hole he's currently in. Or at least bring him a beer. Next up, Marvel Premiere #1, featuring Warlock, published in 1972. This one is written by Rascally Roy Thomas, with art by Gil Sugarcane. What appears to be an insignificant asteroid moves through the soundless void of space, past Mars, the Moon, before finally entering into orbit around planet Earth. Hidden within is a vast, highly advanced scientific complex, home base of the High Evolutionary. Watching the Earth spin below, he recounts the events leading up to this moment. Granted forbidden knowledge of genetics by a rogue member of the Inhumans, the High Evolutionary began creating human-animal hybrids, such as the New Men and their leader, the unfortunately named Man-Beast. Don't mind him. He's always like that before he's had his coffee. At any rate, the first attempt at hybridization didn't work out so well, what with Man-Beast strangling his creator and all. Good thing Thor was on hand to even the odds. That's kind of a running theme with High Evolutionary. He whips up a new batch of weirdies, they rebel, and then a third party steps in to prevent the scat from hitting the blades. Later, Bruce Banner gets drawn into the madness. Initially planning on using his weird juju on the helpless scientist, an injured evolutionary is forced to climb into his own machine to save his life. Turning into whatever this is, he evolves into the ultimate being and vanishes up his own existence, becoming one with the eternal cosmos. This being comics and all, the evolutionary eventually returns to life, and his former genetic monkey shines. Just then, Sir Ram alerts him to trouble in Lock 10. Rushing to investigate, Evolutionary discovers what appears to be something out of an old Doc Johnson catalog floating through space. Ribbed for her pleasure, indeed. Surmising it's a cocoon, the questionable-looking object is brought aboard and examined. And something lives within, the ship's probes revealing a bronze-skinned humanoid. Now in telepathic contact, the being known as him relays its own colorful backstory. Spawned by Earth's super science, him murdered his evil creators before hightailing it to the stars. He returned to Earth only once, coming into conflict with Thor. Boy, that Goldilocks really gets around. And him's a lover, not a fighter, and is quickly beaten. Forming a protective cocoon around himself, he cuts out and has been drifting like an old sofa through our galaxy ever since. And as he's not cooked all the way through yet, him would like to be placed back in his Hot Pocket sleeve and shot back into space, but is intrigued enough by the Evolutionary's talk of Project Alpha to hang around for a moment. Here's the deal. This hunk of earthly stone contains all of the information the Evolutionary needs to create a new world, one which the super scientist will be able to nurture and guide into a brilliant future. And why not? Humanity's already ruined the old one, what with the war and the hippies and the babies and all. Now situated on the other side of the sun, Counter-Earth will at last come into being. Evolutionary immediately begins to cook, increasing the stone's mass until it develops its own field of gravity. Said gravity draws nearby asteroids to it, increasing its mass and density. Soon other changes occur, friction causing hot lava which cools to stone, hardening in torrential rains. Using a myriad of bio-rays, Evolutionary speeds the development of life in the burgeoning oceans, its creatures rapidly evolving and making their way to the newly formed shore. The sheer effort has Evolutionary sweating through his metal mask. That's the level of passion that I like to see in my mad scientist types. Humanity inevitably appears, and, by sheer force of will, Evolutionary purges their murderous instinct before blacking out from exhaustion. Resting on the 8th day and all. Cue the man-beast who's been skulking in the background this whole time. He boards the asteroid and slays Sir Ram, allowing his forces to penetrate the now defenseless structure. Man-Beast then enters the Evolutionary chamber where his creator sleeps, moving with a dreadful certainty towards the machines. Deftly manipulating the console, Man-Beast reintroduces the concept of violence to the fledgling humans. All it takes is one guy hitting another with a stick, and it all begins again, the pointless cycle of violence, death, and destruction as humanity once more turns upon itself, inching ever further towards ultimate Armageddon. To the Man-Beast's surprise, he is struck from behind. The Evolutionary has risen, his recent transformations making him far more durable than before. He engages his feral progeny in hand-to-hand combat, but, in spite of his new power, he battles against staggering odds. The new men attack, distracting Evolutionary long enough to be stunned by a psychic assault. From his cocoon, him witnesses the conflict. In spite of his great power, it is clear the Evolutionary will not survive this encounter, nor will this new Earth. Feeling a sudden sense of purpose, he bursts free of the pod, rushing to his host's aid. However, before he can react, Man-Beast and his followers escape to Counter-Earth. His beautiful vision now tainted, the High Evolutionary moves to destroy his creation, but him stays his hand. Sure, humans are their own worst enemy, and they wreck pretty much everything they touch, but that's no reason to give up on them. Is it? Impressed at his moxie. Or is it chutzpah? Evolutionary symbolically adopts his new son, allowing him to travel to Counter-Earth and continue the battle. However, the Evolutionary is a good dad and makes sure to send the kid off with something he can use, specifically the fabled soul gem of legend, which he sticks right there on him's forehead. And to think, my dad wouldn't even let me get an earring. So yeah, the religious allegory is off the charts here. Pretty over the top, even for the time, but it was a change of pace from the typical Marvel slugfest, so points for that, at least. Our final entry is from Marvel Superheroes, a rarely mentioned anthology title featuring tryout tales from the likes of Medusa, Captain Marvel, and the Phantom Eagle. However, this tale, featuring the FF's most formidable foe, was the last original story that ran before the book became a reprints-only title, an ignoble feat to be certain. But let's get to it. On an abstract battlefield, Doom grapples with longtime foe Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. The rough-hewn hero knocks the Latvian monarch for a loop. It is then we discover this is a projection the real Doom studies, seeking a weakness in his opponent. The next projection is Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, who blasts the villain with a column of flame. The other three members of the team unexpectedly appear, turning away from Doom's hologram and making for the genuine article. And while he's surprised, the Doctor is far from defenseless, and a powerful electric shock repels Mr. Fantastic. Two more well-considered attacks stop Torch and the Thing, but Von Doom hadn't reckoned on Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl. Before things can get hinky, the FF fade away, replaced by Mr. Fancy Pants here. It's Diablo, and he wants to team up. Doom scoffs at the very idea. What does he need this clown-suited peon for? The two face off, with Doom's cutting-edge technology countered repeatedly by Diablo's alchemy. The capper is when Diablo quaffs a curious capsule, transforming into this throbbing, pulsating mass of primordial matter. Say what you will about Ben Grimm, he doesn't leave a puddle on the floor after the fight. Unable to harm the nerveless protoplasm, Doom pauses, allowing Diablo to revert to his human form. As the Doc remains hostile to his proposal, Diablo reveals his ace in the hole and imprisoned Valeria, Doom's old squeeze. The armored villain cannot help but flash back to his youth in Latveria, which was no picnic. I mean, sure, there were picnics, but they were grim affairs. Unable to save the sick Baron's wife from illness, Doom's father is marked for death and is forced to flee into the mountains with his son. Higher and higher they climb, managing to evade the soldiers until the elements force them to turn back. Found the next morning by family friend Boris, the elder Von Doom expires from exposure, leaving a vengeful Victor in his care. Angered at recent events, the boy begins rooting through his mother's old heirlooms. She was a witch, you see, and using her old books and potions, Vic discovers the power of spellcraft and sorcery. However, magic can only take the kid so far. Science is the other component needed to complete his plan, and for that, he'll need to go stateside. Now up to speed, Diablo prompts a contemplative Doom. What's it gonna be? A team-up? Or does he need to do something that everyone will regret? With that, he cuts out, leaving Doom to wonder. Why does he take this crap anyway? Surely these gnat-like botherations realize he could effortlessly quash them beneath one mailed fist. They are as beneath him as amoeba, and yet the sight of Valeria has him doubting his own inner monologue. In a moment of introspection, Doom wonders if she could still love him, now that he is hideously deformed. Using secret means known only to him, he removes his armored mask, exposing his face for the first time in years. Enraged at the mocking visage before him, Doom shatters the mirror, for dreams are like mirrors, existing only to be smashed. And I thought my 13-year-old was dramatic. Spiraling now, Doom's angst turns to hatred. He'll make Diablo pay. He'll make them all pay. For is he not Doom? Before he can start breaking action figures, Diablo reappears. Doom agrees to his terms, but rest assured, he will destroy him at the first sign of treachery. The illusion vanishes, but Doom now knows where he must go. He saddles up and heads back to his castle in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. Remember, it was the 1960s, and summer homes were all the rage. Now surrounded by a military cordon, Doom is forced to sneak into his once proud edifice using an invisibility shield. Waiting within are Diablo and a still in stasis Valeria. Having his fill of this nonsense, Doom lashes out, devastating the military front line with a searing shock blast. The remaining troops return fire, while Doom rages and sputters within. Diablo, who's probably beginning to regret this whole team-up idea, directs his new partner's attention to the time platform. Why, Doom had nearly forgotten about that. This guy, I'll tell you what, Diablo proposes using the time platform to travel back and plunder the past. With the amassed fortune, the pair can then take over the world using a powerful array of satellites to keep everyone compliant, creating a new golden age of villainy. Or they could get their hands dirty, getting involved in more on-the-ground skirmishes like the Civil War, which raises some alarming, if unanswered, questions. With this, Doom has heard enough. Having set up his patsy, he lowers the boom, activating his personal force shield. Separating the pair revives Valeria and pisses off Diablo to no end. Another round of combat begins, the pair getting down and dirty with power blasts, paralyzing smoke pellets, and the aforementioned treachery. Having maneuvered Doom into position, Diablo leaps for the time platform's controls and activates it. However, instead of Doom, it is the alchemist who's plunged headlong through the swirling centuries, faster and faster through the eons, down millennia of mindless destruction and decay before arriving at his final destination, an Earth decimated by endless warfare. You wanted to be ruler? There you go. As for Doom and Valeria, sadly, it isn't a love connection. She's just not into supervillainy, and considering that's the Doc's whole MO, it's clear this'll never work. Still, Valeria offers him one last chance to renounce his evil ways, but this is Dr. Frickin' Doom we're talking about here, lady. She wordlessly leaves him to his hollow victory, promising they shall never meet again. Not sure how she's going to get home, let alone past the now active military presence outside the castle walls. Hope Diablo left her car fare. And there you have it. 3 Marvel epics in one Titanic episode. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed it, please swat that like button. If you'd like to support the channel, get us thee a t-shirt. Thou dost look good in t-shirts. I'm Allfather Mink, and I'll see you thou next time at breakfast.